Hey guys, this is Miss Powers, and this is the video for fraction operations. Now, fraction operations just means adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. And today we're going to just do a review of adding, subtracting, and multiplying fractions. So these are addition and subtraction fraction problems here. So we're just going to work through these notes and work through these problems as a little refresher. For addition and subtraction of fractions, the first thing you want to do is look at the denominators to see if they're the same, okay? Now, the denominators aren't the same in either one of these pairs of fractions, but I'm just going to quickly make up a fraction set that has the same denominator, okay? And if that were to be the case, we would just add or subtract the numerators and keep the denominator. So what this is saying is that if I had two wholes, all right, and they were both divided into 3 equal parts, I've got 1 of the thirds in this whole, and I've got 2/3 out of this whole. So what would that give me? Well, I would add this 1 piece I have to the 2 pieces I have, and that would be 3 pieces, and they're all the same size, thirds, so that would be 3/3, which I hope you remember. If you have all the pieces, that means you have 1 whole, okay? So that's what you do when you have common denominators, and subtraction would be the same thing, okay? But in the case of the problems we have here, we don't have common denominators. So if you don't have common denominators, you need to get them. We need to get common denominators. And you guys can drag and drop these notes into your notebook, okay? So what we're looking at here is, this time we've got a whole that's divided into 5 equal parts, and I'm going to try to do that as best I can. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's only 4. Here, we'll do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and we've got 4 of those, and I know they're not exactly equal, but you can kind of get the idea. And then we've got a half, which is just a whole divided into 2 equal parts, and we have a half. You can see when I draw a picture that these parts aren't the same. So in order to figure out exactly how much 4/5 plus 1/2 is, we need a common denominator. Common denominator means I'm going to find the least common multiple. I'm looking for a number that 5 and 2 are both factors of, or a number that they'll both go into. And you can think about multiples of each number till you get to a common multiple, or you can just multiply the two numbers together. The smallest number that 5 and 2 are both going to go into is 10. So I want to change these fractions so that they both have a denominator of 10, or I'm going to divide both wholes into 10 pieces. So if I divide the whole into 10 pieces, that means I have, for 4/5, twice as many pieces, because there's 2 5s in 10. So that means I've got 8 pieces. And if I take the half and divide it into tenths, that means I have 5 times as many pieces as I did before. So that means I'm going to have 5 parts out of the whole. So now I've got my wholes divided into tenths. I can add up all the pieces. So what I'm going to do now is just add across the top. Now that I have common denominators, I can go back to step 2. And 8 plus 5 is going to be 13. And then I'm going to keep my denominator, because that's how many parts my whole's divided into. I have 13 out of 10. And that means I have more than a whole, because I've got a whole 10 parts plus another 3 parts. So that means I have 1 whole and then 3 parts out of 10. So that's my answer for this problem here. Now we do subtraction the exact same way. I don't have a common denominator here. I've got 5/6 and 1/5, and I cannot subtract fifths from 6, so I need a common denominator. So I'm looking for a number that 6 and 5 will both go into evenly, and I want the smallest number I can find, and I am going to use 30. So I want both of my fractions to be divided, instead of into 6 parts and 5 parts, into 30 parts. So if I take the whole and divide it into 30 parts, that means I have 5 times as many parts as I had to begin with. So that means I've got 25 out of 30. 5 out of 6 is the same ratio as 25 out of 30. And if I've got 6 groups of 5 parts to my whole, I need 6 groups of 1 parts. So that's going to be 6/30. Now I just need to subtract. 25 minus 5 would be 20, and then minus 1 more would be 19. And that's going to be out of the 30 parts in a whole. I'm not changing that denominator because that's how many parts my whole is divided into now. So 4/5 plus 1/2 is 1 3/10. And 5/6 minus 1/5 is 19/30. Okay, so now we're going to look at multiplication, and I understand this might be something that you did over e-learning, but that is actually fortunate because multiplication is the easiest of the fraction operations. Because you are finding groups, you do not need common denominators, okay? This is 1/8 of 4/5. So that means that you're getting a group size that's 1/8 of this 4/5. And in order to do that, all you need to do is multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. So 1 times 4 is 4, and 8 times 5 is 40. Now this one says simplify. Up here, we had to go from an improper fraction to a mixed number. Here, 19 and 30 do not share a common factor, so we don't need to simplify this. But 4 and 40 do. So let's look at our directions here for simplifying. We're going to look and see if the numerator and denominator share a common factor. And that means, do 4 and 40 both have a number that's the same number that you could multiply by another number to get these numbers, okay? And so what I mean by that is factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4, okay? So besides 1, because that's not going to do anything for us, to either one of these factors also divide evenly into 40, okay? So if they do, which they both do, 2 and 4 both divide evenly into 40, we want to divide both by the common factor. Now, if you use 2, it's fine. We can divide the top and the bottom by 2, and we'll get 2 over 20. But then we're going to have to do this whole process again because 2 and 20 have another common factor, which is 2. If you had just gone ahead and divided by 4 to begin with, you would have gotten your answer 1/10 much quicker, okay? But 1/8 of 4/5 is 1/10. If you take 1/8 of 4/5, you get 1/10. Now, these last two problems down here are just some practice with simplifying. So we're just going to be looking to see if we have common factors in 32 and 48. So I'm looking at 32 here, and I know that 1's going to go into that, 2's going to go into that, 4 is going to go into that. I'm thinking about 5 is not going to work. 6 is not going to work. 7 is not going to work. But 8 is going to work, okay? And then I'm kind of thinking through 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is going to work. There's 2 16s in 32 and then 32. So I've listed all my factors now for 32. I'm looking for the largest one that's also going to go into 48. And that is going to be, I believe, 16. Okay, so I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 16. And 32 divided by 16 is going to be 2. And 48 divided by 16 is going to be 3. So I've reduced this down to 2/3. Now again, just like we did on the problem before, if you had not thought about 16 as a common factor for 32 and 48, you could have started dividing by 2, 4, or 8, and then just kept reducing until you got down to 2/3. But when you use the greatest common factor that they share, you have less steps in your simplifying, okay? And then over here, we've got 15 and 45. So my factors for 15 are going to be 1, 3, 5, and 15, okay? And so you may or may not know that 15 goes into 45 evenly. It does. But if you don't, you should know because of divisibility rules that 5 is going to go into anything that ends with a 5. So let's say we didn't think about 15 and we just went ahead and divided by 5 on the top and the bottom. We would get 3 over 9. And then we would see that we still have a common factor in our numerator and denominator, which is 3. So we need to divide again by 3. And we would get 1/3. Obviously, if we had divided by 15 to begin with, we would have also gotten 1/3. So those are the fraction operation notes. So you can pause here if there's something you missed, or you can rewind if you need to listen to something again. I am going to go ahead and go into Schoology. Let me erase my annotations and show you what you need to do today. So if you are in your materials folder, to get to the assignment for today, the football fractions, you can either come over here to upcoming and click football fractions, or you can go through quarter 1, September 8th through 11th, Tuesday, which is today's date. You won't see that Wednesday folder, and click on the football fractions here. But I'm going to go ahead and open up that assignment so that you can see it. There's 4 parts to this assignment. The first part is a sorting activity. So you're going to sort these fraction cards from least to greatest. So you want your smallest fraction first and your largest fraction last. You may need to get common denominators to compare these fractions. You may need to look for common denominators to compare the fractions. Then these next 3 slides are the worksheets that you have in your notebook. I gave these to you before we left for e-learning on Friday. You have an adding fraction sheet, a subtracting fraction sheet, and a multiplying fraction sheet. You need to complete these on the paper, and then if you can, submit images of them that you have inserted into these text boxes. If you're a person whose camera doesn't work and you cannot get these images on here, then you'll just hold on to that work, and when we get back face to face, you can show it to me next week. All right, that is your fractions lesson for today. Please Schoology message me if you have any questions about the assignment or the notes. And if I don't hear from you sooner, I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks.